So welcome back to the second part of tonight's show. We're getting John, Dave, and myself. We're going to look forward to our game against Edinburgh on Friday night, All Euro 14 action, and of course the Irish bid for the World Cup. So anyway, we play Edinburgh this Friday night. Richard Cockrell comes to town.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to this. I like a bit of cockers. Poor
I've heard that.
We did the double over Edinburgh last season, and we won fairly handily in Dublin 39-10.
They've been pretty dreadful for a while, Edinburgh.
Yeah, they had a great two first games, playing the same two first game teams we played.
The question is, what I'm saying is over the last 2 years they were pretty.
Yeah.
Probably, the Italians have an excuse. Edinburgh don't.
Yeah.
You're not kind of away. They were probably the worst team in the league.
They were our bogey team for years. I mean, we draw them probably 3 out of 4 seasons in the.
But those were good Edinburgh teams when they had maybe 10 Scottish internationals and 5 bubbling wonders.
They were the better Scottish team back then.
They had a good team. Chris Patterson always seemed to fill his boots when we came into view.
That's right. Yeah, Glasgow were bottom of the league one of the years in that mid-noughties period.
Yeah. So it's hard to know. I mean, we thought Cockrell had started well with them. Now we're not so sure. But one thing you can be sure of is that it won't be lacking for the old requisite psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm. It's been reputed that all 5 of the Lions are going to be playing, which we'll see when the team is named. But that's a big turnaround. Also, what may have affected our game, I don't know if we mentioned this in part 1, is that Lancaster came back to Ireland 2 days before the game to prep the lads for Edinburgh, because whether that was a little bit of eye off the ball taking in terms of the cheetahs, I don't know. But anyway, we'll move on because that was part 1. But there's a lot of people to integrate, and I think the strategy has been all along to develop a team. So they've 2 second rows left at home. Unfortunately, James Ryan got injured out there. They've 2 props to come in, 2 Lions props. They've got any number of back rows pretty much. They've possibly Sean O'Brien to come in. Levy and Heaslip are out, unfortunately, but we never have a shortage there. So our tight 5 is going to be well shored up with the 2 second rows and the 2 props. If even 3 of those are playing, that's a serious tight 5. Throw Sean Cronin in the middle there. You're looking good. And that's a lot of it was lost. I was quite surprised, again, kind of referring back to the game. I was quite surprised at how tough the Cheetahs were in the tight 5. They were knocking us backwards. We were a bit clueless, but so having those guys up is going to make a huge difference. And poor old Edinburgh are probably going to get.
The other side of that is they could all pick up a schmingery on Wednesday and
none
will play.
I don't know, but
I don't know.
They might have minutes managed, but I think the thing has to be to get them up and running for the 2 European games. So if you can get them 2 games together rather than 1 game against Munster, I think that's a benefit.
Well, the rumor is that they're all going to be back. Whether any of them are back now.
Well, they were supposed to be back for round 4.
Yeah,
that was what Cullen had said. Some of them okay, but the Lions players were. That's what Cullen said, and he says obviously they can't play because they're in South Africa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd predict that they're going to be in round 5.
But everybody except Jack McGrath had an injury, so that kind of, Furlong had his thumb injury or whatever it was. Sean O'Brien, Sexton had 2 injuries. Who else is there? Henshaw was well documented, dimped off. So
you mentioned Sean O'Brien there. What did you think of his comments? Did you hear them? I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah.
What did I think of them? I thought I have 2 opposing views on them in my head at the same time, which is not possible if you're a Trump supporter. I hear. So
on one hand, for the Trump supporter, there's usually plenty of room in there.
On one hand, it's really refreshing to hear a guy speaking out, and a guy who's obviously speaking from the heart and knows the insides, been in the dressing room, veteran of 2 Lions tours, It's great to hear him speak out and give insights that we're not normally privy to. And the other side of it is, you're going, is it a bit ill-advised to be talking out of school? Well, considering that in 4 years' time he'll be 34, and he'll either be so fucking good that whoever's the line coach is going to have to pick him, or he's going to be injured or on the way down. Or
His intention is certainly
So-
to be on the next line, Stuart.
well, absolutely, I'm sure it'll have to be. But you know, he's either going to be so good that he's going to be undroppable and it doesn't matter. So you can say it's like a president who's in his last term. You get all your work done. Because you can do all the unpopular stuff, so he's said a few unpopular things
Isn't
now.
it a shame though that
He's unlikely to be coached by Howley or Gatland.
95% of rugby players come out with utterly bland because
Yeah.
they're reasonably well educated. They've been
Media
coached
managed to it
and very
yeah.
media savvy and managed.
Yeah,
They are trained not to open their mouth to say anything controversial. And the minute that somebody does say something honest and truthful, like O'Gara, but O'Gara didn't really tell tales out of school. He just said how he felt in his own mind or his own heart. But the minute O'Brien comes out with an honest opinion, he's criticised for it. It's
In
terrible.
fairness, a lot of the criticism
It's come from Wales.
is in close male harmony. You know, the English kind of gleefully joined in behind him.
Well, the only
any
text-
chance to keep the domestics down, as it were.
the only text I got from anybody I know in Wales was, "He's right about how."
He's right about how. And there's the thing. I mean, could anyone argue that Howley is, you know, all that exciting? I mean, the idea that, I mean, you can just see the idea of Johnny Sexton and Owen Farrell getting totally fagged off and taking over themselves, which is what he suggested happened. I mean, does that sound far fetched to you? It doesn't sound far fetched to me.
No.
I mean, I'd say that Joe Schmidt and Eddie Jones have a hard job
did
keeping
al-
those boys in line, let alone.
But he did also say that that they were overtrained on the
Yeah.
on the Thursday before the first test, which comes
Warren
down.
Gatland, you can
Exactly.
believe that of,
Yeah,
because he's used to the concept of having unfit players come
Yeah.
into his, you know, and he has to beast them.
he
for
said
Wales.
they did a triple session, which presumably means a weight session and two pitch sessions, which seems outlandish. 3
Now,
days
apparently
before.
the weight session was optional. But you know what optional
Well-
means for professional
Well,
players?
I heard a story there. A friend of mine's brother went to a spin class in Carlow, and it was at the end of July. So this was less than 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the third test, and O'Brien was in the spin class.
That'd be him,
Do you know
alright.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's not taking much of a break, and he's there at 8 o'clock in the morning cycling.
I mean, I don't think it's taken as good to suggest that Sean doesn't like taking breaks. Sean likes playing rugby. You know.
Unfortunately, he doesn't like taking breaks, but he gets a few.
Well, he gets a few. Well, he's made take a few. But look, at the end of the day, I don't think he said what he said was only controversial in the context of the bland
Yeah.
media landscape we have in front of us these days. He didn't even actually say anything in a controversial way.
No, he
You know.
didn't know, and he came back with a kind of a clarification
Yeah.
thing,
Well,
saying,
clearly someone wrote that for him from the
Yeah.
from Leinster branches.
Well, his
media
clarification
class.
said, "I still believe in everything I said." So yeah.
yeah, but it also said, obviously the players
I
made
still have
mistakes
the-
as well,
and I
and
still have the highest
obviously,
respect for
Yeah.
all of the coaching staff.
even though they're not very good sometimes.
So okay, so we have the boys back. Obviously, there's going to be a few injuries. Carney obviously is out.
Yeah.
East is out. Heaslip's out. Levy's out. Ringrose, I guess he's
Yeah.
still injured.
Well, if you had everyone, what's the situation with Nasiwa? That's the tricky one. I presume he's out.
He's out this week,
Yeah.
definitely.
But I mean, if you had everyone, you'd still have a nice. I mean, if everyone is available, you've got McGrath, Cronin, Furlong, Toner, Vardy, O'Brien, Van der Fleer, Conan. That'd be your pack, wouldn't it? I don't think you'd vary too much from
Might
that.
have a Ruddock in there somewhere.
You might have a Ruddock. You'd have a Ruddock knocking around the place somewhere. Then you'd have McGrath, Sexton to start. Jamison Gibson Park was dreadful,
Wasn't he?
wasn't he? Really bad.
yeah.
Now, a lot of people are less than convinced by him. I wouldn't be quite as critical as him as others, but he was dreadful last week.
You'll notice that in New Zealand, he used to come on for TJ Perenara when the game loosened up.
Mm.
And you might notice that all of his best performances in Leinster have been
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
on for the last 20 when the game
Games
loosens
loosened
up.
up, yeah.
And he's brilliant for that because he gets the ball running. He's a great attacking threat. He's not so great at the structured Northern Hemisphere type of game where a lot of box kicking is required, or where
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
so maybe he'll develop in that area, but that's that's where he is brilliant. Like
Mm.
bring him on. He came in on the wing, I think, for against Northampton there in the European Cup last
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So he's got pace. He's got plenty of stuff going
He's
for
got a
him.
beautiful try action.
But
Um,
running a game in the middle,
Yeah, he was-
running a forward pack
It's part of
around.
learning, but he is young.
In the wet.
We got
He's not.
personally. Look, at the time, I didn't think we needed him because I thought we had enough between
Nick McCarthy's coming on.
Nick McCarthy
Lovely.
and McGrath. Anyway, so we start with McGrath and Sexton,
Mhm.
Ringrose and and O'Loughlin in the centres.
Ringo's injured.
Henshaw.
So not sorry, Ringrose.
Henshaw.
Oh, yes, you're right. Sorry, Henshaw. Sorry, apologies. Henshaw and O'Loughlin in the centres.
Might be Reid and Henshaw.
Maybe. And then if not, they could use O'Loughlin on the wing, or they could go Byrne, Carney, and Carberry.
Well,
Back
there's
three.
plenty there for
Plenty
to take
of
care of Edinburgh.
choice morsels.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't take care of Edinburgh in the RDS with that team, you may as well just go home.
There is a school of thought that says put out the same team that lost to Cheetahs and tell them to go and feck and sort it out themselves. You know, apologise for your performance.
We're into serious, like this band. Jason said it earlier. This band of 7
Yeah,
games or
yeah.
6 games or whatever is a real make or break in both competitions. So
True.
It's true.
you only get one chance to play Munster and Lansdowne Road. You only get one chance to
There's a lot of big games, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, some of the other matches this weekend: Cheetahs take on Ospreys. Ospreys have actually lost 8 of their last 10. You mentioned Leinster
Yeah,
losing,
yeah.
whatever it was.
I'd say the Ospreys a kill for our record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they've lost 8 of their last 10.
That's scary.
The arse is really falling out of that team.
And they barely struggled past Zebre, which is
What?
one of the 2 victories.
How long is what's his name there?
Tandy.
Dandy.
Too long.
Too long. I mean, you can only listen to one voice for so long.
Yeah.
I think that. I mean,
He
he's
has
done-
a long contract as well.
yeah,
apparently.
I think that they need a change there. I mean,
You'd have to
not
walk.
because he's a bad coach. He hasn't become a bad coach. They haven't become a bad team. But sometimes the two things combine.
Well, there's also
They're not
the,
as good a team as they were, but still.
there's also the issue of bigger kind of on the outdoors and Reece Webb allegedly going to the Premiership as well at the end of this season. There's
But that's at the end of the season.
Alan Wynne Jones is the kind of the real committed guy there, So
He's coming to the end of his career. He's got to be.
he's knocking on. He's 32 or something.
But they're still a better team than the way they've been playing for the last
Absolutely
10
they are.
games.
Absolutely, but I'm just trying to talk about the quality that they have there, and these are the players that are there.
But that's
Tipperich, of course.
Well, you've got
fabulous
like
player.
we've seen that the Cheetahs are a different animal, obviously, on the in down in South Africa than they are in Europe. So
Mhm.
it's going to be a big ask for the Ospreys to come down
Yeah.
when you've got the Cheetahs to be buoyed from
Yeah.
from the victory over us, and then you've got the Ospreys who are on this downer, what seems to be the world
Yeah.
crashing around their ankles. It's
Yeah.
going to be a big game for Ospreys.
Big game for Cheetahs as well, because if they
Yeah.
can back up, a
Exactly,
win
yeah.
against a Pro 12 big dog with another win over another
Yeah.
Pro 12 big dog,
Mhm.
because you can be sure that the advertising campaign in South Africa for the match on television is 3-time champions Ospreys come to Bloemfontein. Obviously in a South African accent.
And a Swahili one.
Yes. So I mean, it's a big game for the Cheetahs as well. If
Yes,
they want
it
to
is,
back up what they did, because I always think that a big win only really matters if you back it up the next week.
Yeah, well, it'll be an interesting game to watch. Is it on the box?
Not sure.
Be an interesting one.
So Glasgow take on Treviso. That'll be a very difficult one for Treviso. You probably see what their stripes are if they can get put in a good performance.
Yeah.
Shall we say? I'm not
Is
Because
it
Glasgow look to have got there. I mean, they had a bad year last year.
It's always the way.
But they
isn't
took
it?
a Rennie and now they're fine.
That's very good. Well done. They look to be have their shit back together again.
Yeah, but
So
I think when the season that a coach is leaving, it's always very
there's
tricky because the
Yeah.
players know that this guy is a bit of a lame duck, even though he's going to be the Scotland coach.
Mm-hmm.
But
They better be nice to him.
But even you can say the same thing what happened in Connacht when Lamb was well flagged. 6 months before the end
Yeah.
of the season that he was off.
Mm-hmm. You can't have Lamb lays down before Cheetahs. Unfortunately, if you'd only seen out his contract.
Only you had a job with the news of the world.
or if if the American teams are brought in, then you can have Lamb lays down on Broadway.
That our younger viewers will need that explained. But anyway,
Anyway, Scarlets take on
Not
Connacht.
the ones that matter because they'll know what it is.
So Connacht and Scarlets.
That'll be a
Ouch.
ball handling fest.
ouch.
But I think Connacht are still not quite there yet. I don't think Keane has them where he wants them just yet.
And that's another
Um,
double Kiwi coach.
if he's lucky, he'll have lost the dressing room. You know, trying to instill a new system in the team, and it's never easy. But it's going to be very, very hard because Scarlets have kept going where they haven't stopped from what they were doing last year. They've kept going, playing lovely rugby. They've got some really good players, playing great rugby. So I'm actually looking forward to watching the game because you know if Connacht click, they can play a bit of ball themselves. You know,
You never know. You
Yeah.
never know.
And they need their big players to stand up.
what they do, yeah.
And their confidence must be at a pretty low ebb at
Yeah.
this stage.
Yeah.
Munster take on your team, John.
God, if
They take on Cardiff.
Which is certainly even
Cardiff
into
actually
Yorkshire, but sounds nice.
Cardiff actually won this
Move it a
fixture
bit
last year
southwest.
down in Cork.
They did, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
yeah, that was a real shocker at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Can they do it again?
No, I don't think so.
Especially not with Conor Murray and CJ Stander and
Yeah,
the
'cause
boys
if they have their
allegedly
lines back,
coming
yeah,
back.
yeah.
I can't see Cardiff doing much other than melt. But you never know. You just never know.
I do know.
Okay.
I think another good predictor would be Zebre Ulster. We might have said that actually last season, but not so
Yeah.
sure now. Although Ulster do look like they're starting to click.
Yeah, also look like they've got a. I mean, they certainly have their
always-
power game. They've a huge team.
They're always hard to beat in Ravenhill, though.
It's over in Zebre.
I was about to say the
But
games.
they've got a huge team.
in
I mean,
Italy.
physically they're massive, and they're very, very powerful. I don't know if Zebre will be able to live with their power.
Probably not.
But
But-
again, we'll see how well, you know, within the shape of the game, how well Zebre hold their shape.
They were lucky enough to beat Treviso out in Italy.
They were, yeah.
So
Yeah.
The Kings travel up to Newport to take on Jackman's Dragons.
Yeah, that could be interesting. I mean, it is the battle of the bottom feeders to a certain
Yeah,
extent.
one win between both clubs.
But that doesn't mean
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a lot of fun. I mean, Kings have been throwing the ball around a lot. If they can just keep catching it.
well, Bernard Jackman, as we said earlier, rested everybody last week.
Yeah,
and
in preparation for this, I think.
that's
I think he's
why
kind
he's
of
rested.
maybe
them.
targeting games that they can win, maybe
Targeting his
particularly
home
at home
games, yeah.
games. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So the Kings get the honour of facing Gavin Henson.
yeah, rather
I'm
than
sure,
than me.
I'm sure they've all their young lives they've dreamed of it.
He's still very popular in Wales, though. He's a bit of a national hero.
He is. He's the great enigma. I mean, do you remember? Do you
All the
remember
talent, none
him
of the temperament.
Yeah. Do you remember him starting off with yeah, exactly? That's it. All the talent and the talent. Do you remember when he first started with Swansea when he was a young player? He was magnificent.
Oh, he was.
Magnificent.
He had it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he fucked it all away.
Yeah. And every coach always thinks I can be the one who can bring it out of him. You know.
Because it's in there.
Yeah, it is it. I mean, he's all the talent.
Well, he had the
big
confidence
boot,
as well. Do you
the
remember, like
confidence.
when he was taking the kick against England to win the Grand Slam?
Oh,
He
yeah,
says,
yeah.
"Better start celebrating now, boys." As he's like kneeling down to put the ball in
Yeah.
the tee, not after it.
That's some big cojones there, all right.
But the other side, I mean, the thing is, he couldn't deliver it consistently, and when things turned about, and some negative stuff happened, he wasn't able to turn that around.
I think maybe his personal life as well went a bit
Personal
haywire
life
as
maybe
well.
got a bit involved. I mean, it turned out that it wasn't. I mean, Levinson showed that it wasn't entirely his fault what went wrong. You know, so
Well, anyway, moving on to some of the other stuff that's happened around the world of rugby. As you mentioned earlier, John, the Six Nations is looking for a successor to RBS and
17 years or 16 years?
something like that.
Yeah.
But they're looking for over 100 million sterling over 6 years.
It's a fair wage.
It's a lot of money, and you can understand why companies are a bit reluctant to cough up
they're
that.
not going to get it at the moment. I mean,
companies are thinking of pulling out of the UK. Like, you know what I mean? They're not thinking of investing 100
it's
million.
reckoned
in
that they
competition.
might have to go with short-term deals, maybe 10 to 12 million per year. But it's very uncertain for a financial services company, especially. I mean, they don't know if they're going to be based in London, Frankfurt, Paris, or Dublin in
Exactly,
in
yeah.
a couple of years' time. So it's very tricky. It's a very tricky thing. And apparently, RBS were finding it very, very annoying with the media. That the media weren't calling it the RBS Six Nations.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to put that much money, at least you can use their name, kind of thing. And they were finding it very hard to get the media to recognise the brand.
Well, it must be. I mean, I could imagine, like, say, the FA Cup has a similar kind of, because it's whereas the Heineken Cup is obviously.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was just synonymous with.
Well, they had the other problem. They had the other problem where the brand became almost genericized.
Exactly, yeah,
the
that's
people didn't think of when people thought of the Heineken Cup, they didn't actually associate Heineken with the beer. They associated it with the rugby. So that's the other side of a brand being too successful almost. But it's tough times at rugby, and there's not a lot of money to go around. It's uncertain times in, if you like, the Anglo-speaking world at the moment. So something will work out, because it is a huge tournament. It's the premier tournament in world rugby. Where maybe there's another one coming through, hopefully. But it is the premier Northern Hemisphere tournament. So should we see?
3 of the 6 nations deal in euros and are not in the UK, or at least not entirely in the UK.
Well, that's funny you say that, because the IRFU posted a loss this year of 2.8 million, and it was actually mentioned that one of the contributing factors, and there's obviously more than just one, but one of them was the exchange rate. Because clearly that the money that the RBS were giving for prize money from the 6 nations was paid in sterling.
Sterling, yeah, and it's not worth so much anymore. Yeah, and TV deals are probably paid in sterling
TV
as well.
From BBC, exactly, yeah.
Money from Sky, money from BBC. Yeah. So that's an issue.
So obviously there was the big presentation today for all 3 competing countries for the World Cup over in London, and by all accounts the Irish one seemed to go very well. It was certainly a high-powered
we looked. There's a video of the guys marching into and it looks like something from Reservoir Dogs. They're all in the matching suits with the ties and the pins, and the Taoiseach is there, very, very important. Message of support from the Northern Ireland Executive in whatever state it's in at the moment, and from Theresa May, which was also very important.
Head of the Civil Service in Northern Ireland was there as well.
Yeah. Representing
the
the government, or the Northern Ireland government. So I mean, it's a very professional bid. The bid materials look very professional. I looked at the French video today. It was like something from Hello Hello. There's been a lot of criticism and commentary in France that the whole French bid is Laporte's ego writ large across the French national landscape. And if you see their bid video, it's very hard to escape that, because it's all about Laporte. Laporte is the coaching or instructing French society, represented by what can only be described as a series of trite French stereotypes about what they're going to do for the World Cup. I mean, there's a guy with onions around his neck. I mean, it's ridiculous. You'd have to expect the guy from Hello Hello to pop his head in and go good moaning. Very, very poor stuff. And then you compare that to Bob Geldof intoning Yeats's words from the Lake Isle of Innisfree. There's a world of difference in terms of professionalism.
I did Live Aid, man. Get your head around that.
Yeah, I've organised the world's biggest global event. Oh, and here's me mate Bono. Where's the French president, by the way? He was supposed to,
conspicuous by his absence. He didn't even send a message.
He was supposed to. He was scheduled to be there.
Yeah.
And then the whole Montpellier Laporte controversy broke out. So then because he couldn't be seen to be seen with him. So then he was going to send a video, and he didn't do that either. He said, he sent the sports minister instead.
But they brought in, for some bizarre reason, Jonah Loma's children.
Yeah, I thought that was quixotic. I thought that was a very strange thing.
Tugging on the heartstrings.
Yeah, well, if I were there, if I was an Irish journalist in the media, I would have just asked them questions in French.
That's cruel.
Yeah, well, if you want to play dirty.
Yeah, and South Africa, apparently they kept saying, well, if we have political stability throughout
the Commonwealth Games for Ago never happened. That's what they keep saying. And I mean, look, if it comes down to rugby, and I mean, one of the things I noticed actually it's come out of the Irish bid is Ireland are playing the diaspora card very strongly.
Yeah.
And
tying in the wooden planks.
They're tying in the wooden. They're saying there's 70 million people of Irish heritage around the world, and we'll utilise all of those. What they're really saying is, we Irish run America. Would you like it? That's what they're really saying, because World Rugby wants to get into America.
Well, I mean, if you think of it, a few years ago we went on tour to America. We've gone on tour to America quite regularly in the last.
And we played New Zealand there.
I'd say, yeah, exactly.
And successfully.
But we've played in America probably 3 out of the last 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, we're regular visitors to the States.
We haven't gone to Japan.
Churchill
we haven't
Cup as well.
Yeah.
So they're obviously trying to build up some sort of liaison between the two countries, and maybe angle for their votes.
Well, there's two votes there, Canada and North America, and the United States, they tend to move as one. Look, as I said, I mean, we went into it last week, and I spoke about my concerns are Brexit. But
They did answer that one there today. Though.
Yes,
It was a bit of a fudge, but
they answered the same way as the French answered concerns about security. They are the big looming questions over each bid. In terms of the bids themselves, I think, I mean, I can't speak for the French bid because we know France is great at hosting stuff because they've hosted them before.
they're a big country too.
And they're a big country, and they've got all that tourist infrastructure. But we're good at this stuff too. And you look at our bid, you look at the amount of hotel rooms in Dublin, you look at the stadia we're offering, and I said before, the range of experiences we're offering a traveller. I mean, we really,
It's also
really...
nice and self-contained in terms of the size of the country. It's nowhere is that far away. You
You
drive
could get from
everywhere.
Killarney to Belfast in one day.
It's a long drive from, say, Paris down to Marseille.
Yeah.
Long train ride.
I've done it. It is
So
well.
it's we do have a good bid. We do have a genuine, realistic chance of winning it. I just hope we do. I really, really do. I think it would be great for the country. It'd be great for rugby.
Well,
You look at the bit the sport, just sport in general in Ireland. I mean, you look at last weekend, 46,000 people in Croke Park for the women's football finals. I mean, that kind of, if you can motivate and move that number of people for any event, then you're always in with a chance of winning.
Yeah, but you see, the thing about in Ireland is the country isn't big enough that people can just focus on one sport.
No.
Like, there's people who watch, say, the Dubs play, or will watch the soccer team play, or will go to a League of Ireland match and go to a Leinster match. They're the same people.
Oh yeah,
Generally
yeah,
speaking.
there's a big crossover.
And there's like loads of kids that they will go to a national school, and the first game that they play is GAA. And then when they leave national school and they go to another school, well, they might continue playing it. They might play football. They might play rugby. It's what you know what I mean. It's
But you'll see.
they're brought up in to have an interest in every sport. Like, we've all stayed up late at night watching Michelle Smith swim, or anyone, or even the Aga Khan.
Good example there, Jay.
Well, no, but the point is though, like we
Well,
did
we don't
stay.
care about swimming. Yeah, no, I agree.
No,
yeah,
but the point
yeah.
is that we did stay up, and all of a sudden we became experts at it. Or like a new enough sport like MMA.
Yeah.
There's thousands of people flying over to watch McGregor because we're a small
'Cause they're
country.
Irish, yeah.
We're a small country, and anyone who's successful in it, generally the support of the nation gets behind them.
And
You'll
then
also get
but the McGregor thing is interesting because what we can do there is we utilise the Irish American connections in America, and that McGregor is a huge star not because he's popular in Ireland. He's a huge star because let's face it, let's face it, he's an Irish white guy in America, and he's able to utilise all that. That kind of goodwill that's behind that. Same with, I mean, you look at this. Some of the American boxers, like some of the bums that have boxed for world heavyweight titles, just because they're Irish Americans,
Yeah. The other thing is you're probably going to get a big buy-in around the country, like we do with Special Olympics and stuff, where people will all show up and do, take teams into their community and go to the bloody matches. Like, I mean, this is the kind of a country where people will go and see Namibia playing whoever, Spain
You based
in
Namibia in
Killarney.
a town like we'll say Boris and Ossory, right? You base say that's the host town for.
It's a bit of a small one.
I know. I'm
but
just picking one as an example, as a generic town in Ireland, right? Everyone in Boris and Ossory will follow Namibia all around the country because that's their team for the duration of the World Cup. If you do it right, you can build these relationships.
But one thing that I read an interview with Jermaine Potts, who's the head of operations, and he mentioned that because the government have guaranteed the underwriting of it, the ticket prices can therefore be priced.
Yeah.
Like
15 quid was the
exactly like
target.
we all went over to matches at the previous World Cup. Like they were expensive. Like certainly the ones I ended up getting that I went over last minute and I had to buy whatever was available. Now they weren't particularly great seats, but they were bloody expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bought tickets when they came out, kind of thing, and they were still expensive, So if we can keep the cost down as well, that'll be a key factor as well. Look,
In some of the games, you're going to have to milk the big ones,
But you get a sense that a game between Namibia versus Georgia might be great crack.
Yeah.
Especially
if you get the crowd.
Yeah.
Bit partisan for whichever side.
Yeah.
Could be a winner.
Yeah. Well, hopefully so. Anyway, boys, as ever, thanks very much, and thanks a million for watching. Cheers.